The Red Raiders look to improve to 4-0 in the Big 12 for the first time in over a decade. Standing in their way, the Baylor Bears. In today's video, we'll preview the matchup between the Bears and the Red Raiders, including the must-watch players for both sides, the must-watch matchup, odds, and prediction. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast. And if you haven't already, be sure to join the Back to 12 squad. Appreciate y'all staying patient with me. Was on a vacation for the bye week, first year anniversary for me and the missus, so had to go celebrate. And, didn't have a video prepared for you guys, so apologies on that front, but back to normal in terms of the scheduled programming, and that can only mean one thing because it's a preview video. If you watch anything here on the channel, head down to the pinned comment below and give me your score prediction for Texas Tech and Baylor for Saturday afternoon out in the 806. Looks like it may be a little wet out there, rain in the forecast, but looks like it's going to be about 70 degrees at kickoff for the Red Raiders and the Baylor Bears. But let me know your score prediction down on the pinned comment below for this big-time Big 12 matchup for your Texas Tech Red Raiders. All right. Let's set the scene a little bit. Obviously, we know this game will be taking place out in the 806 after the Red Raiders actually beat the Baylor Bears last year at the toilet seat, a.k.a. McLean Stadium out in Waco. Kickoff is scheduled for 3 p.m. Central Time, and you can watch this one on ESPN2. Now, the Red Raiders are an impressive 14-3 under head coach Joey McGuire at home. However, one of those 3 losses is to his former, boss and Dave Aranda and the Baylor Bears, happening 2 years ago, where they ruined the Patrick Mahomes induction ceremony out in the 806. Now, this matchup between the Red Raiders and Baylor dates back to the mid-1950s. This is actually the 83rd all-time meeting between Baylor and Texas Tech. Baylor actually leads the all-time series in this one just by 1 game with a record of 41-40-1. Yes, there was a tie in there. But Texas Tech has actually won 10 of the last 11 matchups at home against Baylor. Again, the only time that they have lost to Baylor at home in the past 11 matchups was the aforementioned Patrick Mahomes induction ceremony game 2 years ago. Now, the biggest thing for Texas Tech going into this bye week was getting healthy. And if you look at the injury report, they have done just that. Out for this game are Javion Wilcox, the safety, and then also Dylan Shaw with a hand injury. The lone questionable on the injury report for the Red Raiders is that of DB Chapman Lewis. So you've got guys like Josh Kelly off of it with his ankle injury, the thigh injury that's been really bothering Braylon Lux from the beginning of the season. He's off the injury report. That is huge for Texas Tech, and not to mention you get 2 guys back in this one, in Isaac Smith and Amir Washington, to help that pass rush that had a pretty damn good day out in Tucson against Noah Fafita in the Arizona Wildcats. Now, the players to watch for Texas Tech are pretty simple. We're always going to talk about Baron Morton, who is much better at home than on the road, although he was pretty solid against Arizona, especially having a couple of really, really tremendous throws, the most notably that one to Caleb Douglas for about a 50-yard gain right before halftime to set up a, pivotal field goal for the Red Raiders when it was all said and done. That's the guy I'm watching for on the offensive side. Now, when it comes to the defensive side, Jacob Rodriguez had one of, if not the best, defensive performance from an individual Red Raider defender in my time discussing Texas Tech. He was absolutely sensational against Baylor. I look for him to continue that in a matchup that has a ton of talent at the linebacker spot, not only on the Texas Tech roster, but the Baylor side of things as well. And we'll talk about 2 of their linebackers here in just a second. Now, the other guy that I really am interested to see, and really it's not just one guy, I should say, it's more of a position group. It's, can the edge rushers actually kind of repeat what they did against Arizona? And now I know what you're going to say. RC, most of that pressure came from the linebacker spot, whether that was Ben Roberts or Jacob Rodriguez, Michael Dingle, whoever it was, right? Like, I get where you're coming from. I think for me, when I say I want to see if they can still continue this, is can they actually get pressure off the edge? Because they did a couple of times, and granted it was the linebackers, but you also were without Isaac Smith. You were also without Amir Washington. Can those guys come in and make an impact and make life a little bit easier for the back end of that Texas Tech defense and the secondary that has gotten a little bit more healthy, right? but also has really done a lot of good for the Red Raiders. It would be really pivotal for Texas Tech to come out of the bye week and continue with that momentum that they, started out in Arizona when it came to the pass rush. Now, on the Baylor side of things, player to watch, Lubbock, Texas' very own Sawyer Robertson is returning out to the 806 to face off against his hometown team in the Texas Tech Red Raiders. He has started the last 4 games for the Baylor Bears, which is a pretty good stretch. Daquan Finn, the transfer from Toledo, has actually been missing time due to injury, the starting quarterback for Baylor to begin the season. But Sawyer Robertson is a guy that not only can beat you with his arm, but is also really, really athletic and is an absolute tank to take down. Okay. Now, these stats aren't going to wow you, but do remember this. In college football, sacks count against your rushing yards. He's rushed for 140 yards and 3 TDs. He is a guy that these linebackers, most notably Ben Roberts, Jacob Rodriguez, and that duo, are going to have to really contain and not allow him to extend plays and really extend drives for the Baylor offense to creep down the field for, extra yardage, extra points. I mean, he's going to be pivotal in terms of Baylor's success. If he does not turn the ball over and he gets to that 50-ish yard mark in terms of rushing the football, it's probably going to be a pretty damn good day for Baylor offensively. That is critical for Texas Tech in terms of stopping him and trying to see if he can beat you mostly through the air, okay? Now, I mentioned that this is going to be a matchup that has a ton of talent at the linebacker spot. The next 2 guys I'm going to mention are just that for Baylor. Let's start with Keaton Thomas. He's a stud. He is an absolute stud for that Baylor defense. A true sideline-to-sideline linebacker type guy that isn't afraid to really go down and get his hat dirty in the run game and just really muck things up, okay? He leads the Baylor defense and really the Baylor Bears with 52 tackles on the year. He's a guy that can drop back into pass coverage as well, but he is going to be a guy that really gets everyone set and in the proper position for that Baylor Bear defense, a defense that hasn't been great this year. And yes, I understand I'm saying that as a Texas Tech fan and content creator. The Red Raiders defense hasn't been great either. But this is a really big bright spot for this Baylor Bear defense in terms of the linebackers. And we'll move on to the next guy in Matt Jones. Again, this duo kind of reminds me of the J-Rod Ben Roberts one. This is a really, really good matchup. Because if you like linebackers in terms of just flying all over the place, this is the game for you, for both sides of the football, really. And Jones has an interesting story in connection to Texas Tech in the sheer standpoint of, his former coach is now the head coach of the Red Raiders in Joey McGuire. McGuire was actually the guy that recruited Matt Jones to Baylor. So you have that. And much like Thomas, Jones is not afraid to get his hat dirty in the run game. He can drop back into coverage and really fool you and also be a really good spy in terms of making sure things don't go a little crazy, quote unquote, when it comes to Baron Morton rushing the football. But those are the 3 most notable guys, in my opinion, to look at from the Baylor side of things. Now, when it comes to the must-watch matchup in this one, I truly think it comes down to really one unit for Texas Tech in terms of who I would pinpoint at the top of, hey, they have to play great. And to be honest with you, this unit, since they've gotten banded together, these 5, and you probably know where I'm going with this now, have played pretty damn well overall. This Texas Tech offensive line against the Baylor pass rush. Now, the Baylor pass rush isn't anything to be gung-ho about, right? And there is a guy that you'll recognize in the Baylor pass rush now, and Steve Linton, the former Red Raider from last year, who only had 3 sacks on the year, and all of them came in the Baylor game. But this Texas Tech offensive line, if they can open up holes for Tosh Brooks in the run game, which they've done a little bit better here the past few weeks, but also just hold up where Baron Morton can go back and not feel the pressure right away. I think Baron Morton and Zach Kitley can dice up this Baylor secondary. I truly do, with the weapons that Texas Tech has, most notably, obviously, Josh Kelly. So I'm interested to see that from that must-watch matchup perspective. And I think if the Texas Tech offensive line does that, you're going to see more of the guys like Josh Kelly, the aforementioned Josh Kelly, Caleb Payday Douglas, Coy Aiken, and I think this might be the week you see a little bit more of Micah Hudson too. Remember, he had that big play at Arizona. After the bye week, maybe they incorporate him a little bit more. I'm not saying he's going to start or anything. I'm just saying maybe he gets a few more snaps here and there. It would not be surprising to me. Now, as for the odds for this one, Texas Tech and Baylor, the Red Raiders are actually favored at the time of this recording by 6.5. This line opened up at 8.5 over on FanDuel. It has since gone down to 6.5, and I think this is the range that it should be, and I thought it would be in that 6.5 to 7.5 range for this matchup. The total over-under is set at 55.5, and I think the Red Raiders win at home. Again, they are 14-3 at home under Joey McGuire, right? One of those 3 losses is against Baylor. I don't think they let that happen again. Texas Tech improves to 4-0 in the Big 12 with the win over Baylor. My score prediction is 36-27. Let me know yours down on the pinned comment below. All right, that's going to do it. Appreciate some of y'all reaching out to me and asking, RC, where the hell the video's at? I've got you now. We're back from vacation. We had to take care of a few things when it came to family. I appreciate y'all reaching out and making sure everything is good. Back to the normal scheduled programming here on the channel. But before you head out of here, be sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and head down to that comment section and let me know your score prediction for Baylor at Texas Tech, a pivotal game for the Red Raiders, because if you start 4-0 in the Big 12, you're in really, really good shape to potentially long-term. I'm not talking just now, not next week. I'm talking in November, have a chance to play in Jerry World in Arlington for the Big 12 title. All right, I'm RC Maxfield again one more time, and then I'll get out of your hair. Be sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell to stay in the know on all things Texas Tech football and men's basketball. It's right around the corner, people. Only 3 weeks away for Texas Tech men's basketball. We'll have more content like that here on the channel as well. So if you want to join the largest group of Texas Tech fans here on YouTube, just do those 3 simple steps and join the Back to 12 squad today.